It's 1977 in the UK. Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols lets rip with God Save the Queen. The first two verses read, "God save the Queen, the fascist regime. They made you a moron, a potential H-bomb. God save the Queen. She ain't no human being. There is no future in England's dreaming." The crime of treason under English law has always been somewhat flexible, and not in a good way. Very often, when a person was charged with treason against the monarch, they were as good as dead. Ask Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard. It was like the Queen of Hearts pronouncing in Alice in Wonderland, sentence first, verdict after. Not that long ago, this attack on the Queen by the Sex Pistols would have amounted to treason, ending in a hanging or perhaps worse. Was the law the same in 1977? Should there have been a prosecution of the band? This is I Fought the Law, where rock plays the courtroom. My name is Declan Olula. Folks call me Bebop. I have called this episode God Save the Queen. English treason law descends from the medieval Statute of Treasons, 1351. In modern terms, three central manifestations anchor the offence. 1. Compassing or imagining the sovereign's death. 2. Levying war against the sovereign in the realm. And 3. Giving aid and comfort to the sovereign's enemies. 16th century legislation and prosecutions dramatically increased the scope of the offence of treason to include actions or thought related to religion, prophecy and political dissent during the Reformation, producing controversial, constructive treasons beyond direct attempts on the monarch. In essence, it was a case of fitting the crime to the facts rather than the facts to the crime. Concern about partisan abuses led to the Treason Trials Act, 1696, introducing distinctive protections, notably the two-witness rule, the right to defence counsel and advance notice. These rights are regarded as a given now, but were truly exceptional for the time. By the 1800s, English jurists sought to confine high treason to wartime betrayals and to channel political plots into the more lenient Treason Felony Act 1848. Across the empire, however, constructive readings of treason persisted. In other words, people in the colonies were still being executed, often for seeking their freedom from British rule. The modern offence of treason still uses the three aforementioned elements, but treason isn't just any crime against the crown. To commit treason, you must first owe allegiance. That's the legal bond of loyalty that ties a person to the sovereign. Think of it like this. Treason is breaking faith with the person you are bound to protect and obey. Without that bond, there can be no betrayal. Someone born in England automatically owes allegiance to the monarch wherever they are in the world. This clearly applied to the members of the Sex Pistols. So when the Sex Pistols sang their God Save the Queen, what arguments could be used to charge them with treason? The song was fiercely anti-establishment, calling the monarchy a fascist regime and suggesting no future. It was shocking, especially in Jubilee year, but could it be treason? Let's test it against the law. If prosecutors said that the lyrics of God Save the Queen was an imagination or wish for her destruction, they could try to frame it as compassing, in other words, wishing for the death of the monarch. Historically, very indirect words have sometimes been treated as evidence of imagining the monarch's death. This was especially true in Tudor times, when prophecy, writings, or even failure to deny rumours could be criminalised as treason, but not very likely under modern law. Modern courts require proof of an overt act showing intent to kill the sovereign. Song lyrics are a political expression, not a plan or attempt. In other words, singing a song isn't levying war, which means armed rebellion or insurrection. What of the lesser offence of sedition? The crime of sedition can be described as stirring up hatred against the monarchy or government. Sedition was still technically a common law offence in the UK in 1977. though prosecutions had become rare and controversial, as the offence seemed to be a direct attack on the right to free speech. It was finally abolished in 2009. Sedition is the use of words or writings to bring the crown or government into hatred or contempt, or to promote hostility and disorder. The lyrics of the song call the monarchy a fascist regime and strip the queen of her humanity by saying she ain't no human being. That is plainly calculated to bring the sovereign into hatred and contempt. The song was broadcast and marketed widely, a deliberate attempt to influence the public and undermine allegiance. In a further attempt to publicise the record, the Pistols embarked on their infamous barge concert on the Thames, deliberately passing close to the Queen's barge mooring. In the charged climate of 1977, which was characterised by economic crisis, social unrest, and political extremism, such an attack on the monarchy could incite disaffection and threaten public order. Case law supported sedition charges where publications undermined respect for the crown. The punk record fits that model. On the other hand, in modern times, sedition prosecutions would be viewed as outdated censorship. A jury would likely see the case as political persecution. There is no incitement to violence. The song is provocative, but it doesn't urge rebellion, riot, or attacks on the Queen. It's a critique, not a call to arms. Punk is art, satire, and protest, protecting unpopular music, or in this case very popular amongst the youth, under freedom of expression, is vital in a democratic society. Sedition was a plausible charge on the wording, but politically toxic and legally shaky. In practice, the authorities avoided sedition and instead leaned on censorship, banning the record from the BBC and many retailers. That was safer than risking an embarrassing trial. There was never any type of charge brought against the band for their songs or on-stage antics. Perhaps, despite all their bluster and anarchic lyrics, the punk movement did not really bother the British establishment. I'm Bebop Olula, and this has been I Fought the Law, where the law tries to understand rock and roll. Until next time, adios.